You probably wouldn't know this unless I mention it, but take three. Here we go. 7 o'clock in the morning on a Friday, September 6th. Actually, 7:11. How about that? And it's going to be frosty out there. Not slurpy, but frosty in some areas this weekend. We'll show you that. Also, just beautiful weather this weekend for the Midwest, for the Great Lakes, for the East, down into the Southeast. Further southeast, still flooding concerns, still baking Northwest and West Coast. We'll show all of that to you coming up. But first, we start with the West Coast baking. That's heat advisories, heat warnings, all the heat stuff, excessive heat warnings all the way up and down the West Coast. And then further inland, we're still looking, is that fog? I think it is fog. It could be air quality alert. I noticed that yesterday that the air quality alert looked a lot like the fog. And actually looking at the key at the bottom, even though it's a little blurry because of the resolution, I don't see any fog in that key. So it is air quality alert for Eastern Oregon into Idaho. It's probably smoke from a distant fire. Thank you, Stanford Townsend Band. Also down there near Cincinnati. So I don't know, is that urban ozone? I don't know. And then you get down into the southeast. Here's our flooding concerns from just to the east of Houston through southern Louisiana, even parts of the Florida Panhandle, and even Biloxi, Mississippi. And then along the coasts, we see the areas of gale warnings or small craft advisories, including Alaska there. It's our weather spotlight, spotlight, spotlight. And you knew I was going to go there. Yeah, it's a frost advisory for tonight, or really tomorrow morning, tonight into tomorrow morning, for the Arrowhead of Michigan, around Duluth, around Lake Superior. According to this, you have to get off the lake just a little bit for the cooler temperatures. I guess the Lake Superior water temperatures keep things a little bit warmer right along the coast, but you get a little away from the lake. Could be frost by morning, and even some areas with freezing temperatures, which, kills plants and put it into your growing season. So here we go, just another sign that fall is on its way. Looking at the surface, we see where that cold front has gone all the way through West Texas now and New Mexico, most of Oklahoma, Missouri, Illinois, Indiana. So that's where it's cooling off for today already. We're at 47 degrees this morning here in western Iowa, according to my backyard thermometer, so pleasant for sure. Some isolated showers, but really nothing of significance till you get down to the southeast. Although we will start to see some more showers busting out Ohio River Valley into the northeast, and we'll show you that on the radar here coming up, the future radar. We can see into the future. Well, that's what weather's all about, right? As imperfect as that is. All right, highs today reflecting that cool front. So, Michigan in the 60s, maybe even a few 50s here. Even northern Wisconsin, the Arrowhead of Minnesota, 60s for highs today. 70s all the way down into Iowa, the Dakotas, down into Nebraska, transitioning to 80s in Kansas, and mid to upper 80s as you go through Oklahoma into Texas. Although West Texas cooler, that cold air goes straight down the east side of the Rockies a lot of times. So it'll be cold, much cooler western part of Texas, and then warming up as you head east, as we see here. Then the rain cooled air, Louisiana, Mississippi, into Alabama and Georgia in the 70s here, even though 90s for Florida. Then 80s up the coast, and then back to 70s in the Northeast. But the hot stuff is the West. 97 today, Portland. 102, Redding. 105? Is that 105 for LA? Wow, that's crazy. 109 for Phoenix, of course. Now, lows tomorrow morning, again, behind the front, we see a lot of 40s up there in North Dakota, South Dakota, Minnesota, Wisconsin, into Michigan. But as we showed you, there will be some 30s and even some isolated areas of freezing temperatures. Nice. Refreshingly cool here in Iowa. Not as cool as this morning, so low 50s. Although my 7-day forecast is showing mid 40s tomorrow morning. So parts of Iowa in the 40s for sure. Then as you go further south, you see the warm start in Texas and the southeast, but nice and cool along the east coast. And a warm start to the day along the west coast, but this is dry air. So, 60 for Eugene, even though, the highs are going to be near 100. And then the desert southwest starting out in the 80s. Tomorrow's surface, that cool front moving further into the southeast, bringing those cooler temperatures for the weekend. It's going to be just a beautiful weekend in Arkansas, Tennessee, Kentucky, up into Ohio. Just great. You see our scattered storms returning to the Four Corners, although they were there, but probably a little better chance, a little more widespread. And our southeastern soaker is moving a little further to the east. And then a better chance of showers and storms along that front, say West Virginia, Pennsylvania, New York, as a low forms along that front. So highs tomorrow. We're going to see some of the warmth in the plains start to move back to the east. So starting to warm up a little bit for central Nebraska, mid 70s, upper 70s, Kansas. But I mean, these are very pleasant temperatures for the weekend. 77 for Little Rock, 79 for Nashville. Very nice. And when you get up into Ohio, low 70s, even some 60s. Same for Indiana, and definitely 60s, even 50s for Michigan, parts of Pennsylvania and Ohio. So just a gorgeous weekend. Not as hot for Portland, 89. So starting to see relief from the heat, but 105 when you get up to Moscow, Idaho, and 96 for Spokane. So hot here. And still Central California into the desert southwest, very hot tomorrow. Here's the rainfall for the next 2 days. And we're going to see a low form along that cold front in the eastern Great Lakes area and lift to the northeast. So it's going to focus more rain on that front. So that'll be mainly a little bit of Ohio into Pennsylvania, definitely western New York. Our heaviest rain showers here. And then down in the southeast, even heavier rain showers as we zoom in. We've got isolated areas over 4 inches, mainly off the coast or right along the coast. But some pretty good rains, even into Georgia. You could see an inch and a half, 2 inches for some areas, and also into Florida. So that's where we're expecting the heaviest rain for the next 2 days. And then as we round out the weekend forecast by Sunday, that cold front pushes all the way through the East Coast. So those very pleasant temperatures all the way down to the Gulf Coast, all the way through the East Coast. And the warmth starts to return back into the plains. And those highs on Sunday reflected that. So now we're seeing more 80s to near 90. For Nebraska into South Dakota, even up into eastern Montana, but still pretty pleasant for Iowa. I mean, 77 for Des Moines is not bad. 70s in Minnesota, so warming up from the 60s. Same for Wisconsin, same for Michigan. That cooler air now all the way to the east, and that's where we see our 60s for highs. New York State, Vermont, places like that. Not as hot West Coast, but still on the warm side for this time of year. And the desert Southwest is still on the hot side. All right, European model already in motion for you. This will get us through Monday. And this is what I'm talking about here is we're going to see a low form on the cold front here, and that's going to lift to the north and continue to push that colder air to the east, and it's going to clear the East Coast. The cooler air is going to be in here, but that's also where we're going to see the heavier rainfall is going to be, from Ohio through Pennsylvania into western New York, and then fading out as you head further to the east. Then here's our heavy rain along the Gulf Coast all the way through the weekend and into early next week. Otherwise, pretty quiet around the country. And what's our trend for the next 6 to 10 days as we get deeper into Septiembre? Well, it's going to be dry for the Great Lakes, like really dry, and all the way down into the southeast and extending through the Ohio Valley into the northeast. The best chance for wetter than average temperatures, cooler than average temperatures. I don't know why I get confused on this map. Maybe it's the blue that threw me off. But anyway, cooler than average, if this comes true, from Texas through the southeast into the mid-Atlantic and a pocket there in Oregon, Northern California. Here we go with precipitation for the next 6 to 10 days. Northwest, the best chance of wetter than normal, also through the south and southeast. Drier than average expected Great Lakes and eastward and into the Four Corners. All right, that is a quick look at your weekend forecast. Happy Friday. And we'll keep you posted. We should be back tomorrow. Lord willing and the creek don't rise. Thank you for tuning in, the Weather Mike.